The Vampire of Hollywood Cemetery. The legend began when a ghastly figure, reported to have sharp, pointed teeth, emerged from the ruins of the Churchill train tunnel after it collapsed in 1925, only to disappear into the sealed mausoleum in the famous cemetery, never to be seen or heard from again. The legend carries with it such weight that Satanists and occult groups have been reported to gather at the site. Of course, if this legend is to be believed, one can only assume that this vampire is not a particularly hungry one, as no evidence of blood-sucking has been seen in the 90 years since it was first sighted. However, the story of the tunnel's collapse does not start nor end with the vampire alone. In fact, investigation into the tragic event raises more questions than it does answers. On October 2nd, 1925, a group of men left for work, just as they did any other day. Their jobs, although for varied organizations, led them to the same space, namely the Churchill train tunnel. The tunnel had been built for the C&O Railroad in 1875, but had long been plagued by problems due to water seepage and other safety concerns. After being abandoned in the early 1900s, the tunnel sat vacant until 1925, when the railroad began work to restore it to a usable condition, hoping to expand their rail lines. On the afternoon of October 2nd, C&O engineer Thomas J. Mason pulled 10 flat cars behind locomotive number 231 into the western entrance of the tunnel, just below Jefferson Park. Construction workers were to load the flat cars with dirt, which Mason would then haul away. C&O fireman Benjamin F. Mosby was aboard the train with Mason when the bricks began to fall from the tunnel roof, severing the electrical connections and plunging the tunnel into darkness. Sensing the imminent danger, workers began to race for the exits as nearly 200 feet of the tunnel's western entrance collapsed directly onto the train. It was here that the urban legend was born, one that continues to circulate through local lore even today. The story goes, a bloody figure with pointed teeth and skin hanging from its bones emerged from the cave-in and began running towards the James River. Several men pursued the spectral figure until, as they claim, it mysteriously disappeared into the mausoleum of W. Poole, located some distance away in the Hollywood Cemetery. Research into this Richmond vampire legend reveals a few men did in fact survive the collapse by climbing under the flat cars and escaping through the east entrance of the tunnel. One such survivor was Benjamin Mosby, the 28-year-old fireman who had been shoveling coal aboard the train with Mason. Far from being a vampire, Mosby was a strong, muscular man, but had been badly burned with severe lacerations and more than a few broken teeth when he escaped the ruins. He later died from his injuries in a local hospital. After the accident, the tunnel remained a rescue scene for several weeks. Yet, only Mason's body was ever recovered, as every effort to dig through the rubble resulted in further cave-ins. Finally, the Virginia State Corporation Commission ordered the entrance to be sealed, claiming that the tunnel's condition presented too many safety concerns. It is believed that to this day, at least 2 workmen lay sealed behind that wooden door that now marks the western entrance of the tunnel. The identity of these men remains unknown, as employment records were not well kept at the time, and most likely the men were workers who came and went as work was available. In 2006, the Virginia Historical Society and History Channel sought to uncover the buried train and end the mystery of the workers left entombed within the wreckage. However, soon after drilling into the tunnel, the camera revealed water and silt filling the cavernous space, making any further exploration too dangerous for surrounding homes and land. While the legend of Richmond Vampire may be founded a little more than sensational storytelling and urban legends, the tragedy of the Churchill Tunnel remains very real. The Gorilla Train. The story goes that in 1952, a Ringling's Brothers and Barnum and Bailey's circus train derailed in Evington, just outside of Lynchburg. 35 gorillas escaped, and although they were hunted, none were recovered. Supposedly, they all lived in the woods in and around Campbell County for the next 30 or so years, where they monkeyed around with locals, harassing family pets, stealing from gardens, and peeking in windows. The last report of a gorilla-related antic was in 1981, and only one picture exists from 1967, when Horace Dilpmore caught one of the gorillas posing like the Thinker on his roof. It makes you think, maybe all the Bigfoot footprints found nowadays in the area are just some of the gorillas that are still alive today. The Lost Treasure of Biel kippers. More than a century ago, a small pamphlet was published titled The Biel Papers, which contained 3 kipper texts. The mysterious codes supposedly gave directions to a treasure buried in a secret location in Bedford County, Virginia, in the 1820s. The cryptic texts have captured the imagination and enthusiasm of avid cryptographers and treasure hunters ever since. However, despite numerous digs and countless attempts to crack the code, 2 of the 3 ciphers remain undeciphered, and no treasure has ever been found. According to the story set out in 1885 pamphlet, an American man named Thomas J. Biel came across a treasure consisting of gold, silver, and jewels in a mine located to the north of Santa Fe. Biel and 30 fellow adventurers transported the hoard to Bedford County, where they buried it in a secure location. Biel then wrote 3 encoded letters, one giving the exact location of the treasure, a second giving its detailed description, and third giving the names and contact information of the 30 partners. He placed them in an iron box and gave them to a trusted friend, the local innkeeper named Robert Morris, before disappearing, never to be seen again. The story goes that Biel instructed Morris not to open the box unless he or his partners failed to return from a journey within 10 years. When Biel had not returned in 23 years, Morris opened the box and was stunned and excited by what he read. He immediately began to try to decode the 3 ciphers. But after decades of attempts, he was no closer to solving the mystery. Before he died, Morris gave the papers to an unnamed friend, and he too spent decades working on deciphering the messages. Using an edition of the United States Declaration of Independence as the key, his friend managed to successfully decipher the second of the 3 cipher texts, which gives a description of the buried treasure, and it reads as follows. The first deposit consisted of 1,014 pounds of gold, 3,812 pounds of silver deposited November 1819. The second was made December 1821 and consisted of 1,907 pounds of gold and 1,288 of silver. Also, jewels obtained at St. Louis in exchange for silver to save for transportation, and valued at $13,000. However, unable to decipher the remaining 2 texts, including, most importantly, the cipher containing the location of the treasure, the friend immediately made the story, and the ciphers went public in the Biel Papers pamphlet, published by another friend, James B. Ward, in 1885. The publication of the papers sparked a frenzied attempt to decipher the mysterious codes, and treasure hunters, impatient with attempts to unlock the remaining ciphers, grabbed their shovels and headed to the hills of Bedford County and began digging. The second cipher described the location as being within 4 miles of Bufford's Tavern, which some will never be swayed in their resolve to find the treasure. Some experts considered the Biel ciphers to be an elaborate hoax. Cryptographer Jim Galagi, in his 1989 article, A Dissenting Opinion, and forensic linguist Joe Nickell, in his article in 1982, both present compelling arguments suggesting that the person who published the 1885 pamphlet, supposedly James B. Ward, was the same person who wrote the original letter with the ciphers, supposedly Thomas J. Biel. A linguistic analyst, for instance, revealed a strong similarity in writing style between the original letter and the published papers, including the same use of punctuation, grammar, and vocabulary. Joe Nickell also pointed out that the original letter, supposedly written in 1820, used words such as stampede and improvised, which were not used until the 1840s, indicating that this could not have been written at the time alleged. Attempts to track down this mysterious Thomas J. Biel from Virginia were also met with dead ends. Could it be that the Biel papers were just an elaborate ploy carried out by James B. Ward to earn a few extra dollars? The pamphlets were sold at a price of 50 cents, which is roughly $13 today, and the author was no doubt expecting a wide and enthusiastic readership. Despite all evidence suggesting that the whole story is nothing but a hoax, dedicated cryptographers continue to work tirelessly on the code, and fortune seekers still climb the Bedford County countryside for the elusive and perhaps non-existent treasure. Spurred on by the thrill of perhaps one day solving the centuries-old riddle of the Biel ciphers. The Beast of Gum Hill. A February 2012 episode of Animal Planet's Finding Bigfoot set out to answer that very question. The Beast of Gum Hill is a local legend in the Saltville area. Supposedly, this enormously tall, hairy figure had been sighted roaming around the woods in and around Saltville and Abingdon over the years. The eyewitnesses, many of whom come forward for filming, describe a large black creature that wandered up to them or was seen running through the trees. The show ended without any conclusive evidence of a Bigfoot in the Virginia hills. But there is no shortage of teams around the county devoted to proving the existence of Bigfoot or the Sasquatch. And while most reported sightings come from the more rugged mountains of the western part of the county, but who's to say that they don't have their own Bigfoot roaming around the hills of southwest Virginia? Of course, it could just be one of the gorillas from the Evington. The Bunnyman Bridge. On Colchester Road in Fairfax County, Virginia, just outside of a small town called Clifton, stands a very unlikely destination that tourists visit every day. Although it's officially called the Colchester Overpass, unofficially has been known as the Bunnyman Bridge. To outward appearances, there's nothing remarkable about this site, which is pretty much just a one-lane concrete tunnel underneath a railroad track. What draws people to it, despite the fact that the tourism is discouraged greatly by local authorities, is the legend of a murderer. The details vary in the tellings, but there's two basic versions of the story. One begins with the closure of a nearby insane asylum, from which a busload of inmates were said to have been transported to another institution. But when two of the most dangerous escaped and hid in the woods, there was a manhunt, yet they eluded authorities for weeks, leaving half-eaten carcasses of rabbits in their wake. Eventually, one of them was found dead, hanging from the overpass. The other escapee, which is now dubbed the Bunny Man or simply Bunny Man, was never found. Some say he was struck and killed by a passing train, and his ghost continues to haunt the overpass, killing and mutilating innocent passers-by. The other version begins with a deranged teenager who one day donned a white bunny costume, murdered his entire family, and then hung himself from the overpass. They say that his spirit is the one that haunts the bridge, chasing down visitors with his axe and disemboweling them. All told, some 32 people have supposedly died there. Bunnyman sightings have been reported in other locales as well, and not only in Fairfax County, but also in Maryland and the District of Columbia. When not committing outright murder, he is said to chase children with his axe, attack adults in their cars, and vandalize property. Though no insane asylum has ever existed near or in Clifton, Virginia, that's according to archivist and a historian named Brian A. Clooney, who extensively researched this Bunnyman story. Nor is there any record of a local teen murdering his family. And no one has ever hung themselves off Bunnyman Bridge, nor have there been any homicides that occurred there. Like others who have attempted to verify these tales, Conley concluded they are false. In short, he wrote, the Bunnyman does not exist. However, on October 22nd, 1970, a curious story appeared in the Washington Post under the headline "Man in Bunny Suit Sought in Fairfax." According to the report, a young man and his fiancée were sitting in their car in the 5,400 block of Guinea Road, approximately 7 miles due east of the Colchester Overpass, aka Bunnyman Bridge, when they saw a man dressed in a white suit with long bunny ears. After complaining that they were trespassing, he threw a wooden-handled hatchet through the front window of the car and skipped off into the night, read the article. However, over a week later, the axe man with bunny ears was spotted yet again, about a block away from where the first sighting had occurred. This time, he was standing on the porch of a newly constructed house, hacking away at the roof. Here is how the report in the Washington Post went. Paul Phillips, a private security guard for a construction company, said he saw the rabbit standing on the front porch of a new but unoccupied home. I started talking to him, Phillips said. And that's when he started chopping. All you people trespass around here, Phillips said. The rabbit told him as he whacked 8 gashes in the pole. If you don't get out of here, I'm going to bust your head on the road. Phillips said he then walked back to his car to get his handgun, but the rabbit, carrying the long-handed axe, ran off into the woods. The mysterious rabbit of Guinea Road was never identified, caught, or even questioned. Nor was he seen again, so far as anyone knows. But there's a good reason to suppose that these sightings formed from the Bunnyman legend. Not only did the incidences occur in Fairfax County, not far from Colchester Overpass. Not only did the perpetrator allegedly threaten people with an axe while dressed in a bunny costume, but these reports were published in 1970, almost the exact same time the earliest known variations of the story began to appear. So yes, real-life events of some 40-odd-year-old served as the basis for this tale, but the rest? Not least any supposed connection between the Bunnyman and his namesake bridge is pure embellishment. But that's how a legend is made. I hope you ghouls enjoyed these Virginia urban legends. We're getting close to the end of our U.S. states urban legends. I'd like to venture to Canada with the help of Mike, probably, to learn their urban legends. And I have quite a few stories backlogged for creepypastas that are set in certain states. So that'll be coming up either before or after the Canadian urban legends. We'll see. But as always, ghouls, the last video will be on the top left. The next video will be on the bottom left. All my social medias are on the screen as well as in the description box below. And remember, there's always someone or something watching you.